Hi internet! Please be advised that this video deals heavily with the topic of self-harm, suicide and suicide prevention. If you or someone you know are experiencing self-harm, suicidal thoughts or ideation, please seek help. You can find a link to an extensive list of worldwide suicide crisis lines in the description box below this video. Many, if not all, of these services are free. If your life is in immediate danger, please call emergency services or present to your local emergency department. Suicide is not an easy topic to talk about, but it's often the most difficult topics that need to be addressed. Most people's lives have been touched by suicide, whether you know someone who's been suicidal, someone who's died by suicide, or whether you've been suicidal yourself. The World Health Organization says that over 800,000 people die by suicide each year, although the numbers are significantly higher than that when you consider people who feel suicidal or attempt suicide. It is the second leading cause of death between 15 and 29-year-olds worldwide, although depression and suicide don't discriminate based on age, gender or race. September 10 is Suicide Prevention Awareness Day, to coincide with Are You OK Day on September 8 and Suicide Prevention Week, which is September 5th through 11. To commemorate this, the Be the One To campaign has launched worldwide to share resources on how you can be the one to prevent suicide in your family, friends group and community. As part of the campaign, they've released a 5-step action plan to help us know how to prevent suicide. I'll put a link to the campaign in the description box below so you can head over to their website and download the resources after the video. They also have a wonderful hashtag on Twitter, #BeTheOne2, which they're hoping to trend on September 9 and 10 to coincide with their Twitter chat where you can ask questions about suicide prevention, depression and anxiety. The 5-step Be the One campaign empowers you to be the one to ask questions and provide connections and support to people who are feeling suicidal or have suicidal ideation. The first step is be the one to ask. They say don't be afraid to ask the hard questions. When someone you know is in emotional pain, be empathetic but direct and ask them, are you thinking of killing yourself or hurting yourself? It is difficult to get the conversation started when it's a topic like this, but it's far better to have a difficult conversation than it is to get the phone call that your friend or family member or community member has died by suicide. Please don't assume that someone who knows them better has asked, even if there are a lot of people who are closer to them than you are. It's really difficult to imagine someone you love feeling suicidal, and so a lot of times family members won't pick up on it or won't know what to say. The next step is be the one to keep them safe. If they're considering suicide, ask them with empathy but without judgment if they've thought about how they might hurt themselves. Separate them from anything they might hurt themselves with. Depending on the situation, it might be asking if you can physically remove the item or removing the person from the situation. Now at this point I really want to emphasize again that if somebody's life is in immediate danger and they're in immediate danger of taking their own life, call the emergency services or take them to the nearest emergency room. If you need help in actually knowing how to help them or what to say, you can also contact your local suicidal crisis hotline. The next step is be the one to just be there. If someone is considering suicide, listen to their reasons for being in pain and feeling hopeless without any judgment. Although it might be your instinct to remind them how wonderful they've got it and how many people love them, or the things they have to live for. Try instead to understand where they're coming from and help them to come up with reasons to live as the conversation progresses naturally by themselves. This could be the time to remind them that it's a temporary feeling, that you care about them and that you want to help. Voicing rebuttals like, oh, but you have such a great job or such a close family, can often make the person feel more isolated. It can make them feel like you don't really understand where they're coming from, which can cause them to shut down and just lead to feelings of not wanting to open up to you or anyone else. Next, be the one to help them connect with a support network. This might be their family, it might be other friends, hopefully though it would be a doctor, a suicide prevention hotline or an emergency room. Conversely, it could be a counsellor or a psychiatrist, but it is important to make sure or to help your friend connect with a professional source of support for long-term support, counselling or medications. But make sure that they know that you are there for them and standing next to them, not just pawning them off onto another service. It could even be helpful just to offer or ask if they would like you to attend a doctor's appointment or psychiatrist or counselling appointment with them, or go with them to tell their family how they feel. The next step is to be the one to follow up. Having regular contact with your friend or family member in the weeks and months after a crisis can have a really significant positive impact. You don't need to talk about the crisis all the time, but just like a phone call or a visit to follow up every now and then, or to chat or to hang out, can let them know and show them that you support and care about them, and can also help in the prevention of further suicidal thoughts in the future or suicidal ideation. Beyond Blue has an extensive list of the warning signs of suicidal thoughts that I will link to in the description box below. Of course, everyone is different, so everyone acts differently. However, some of the most common signs from their list include alcohol and drug misuse, withdrawal from family and friends, people seem to be putting their affairs in order, writing notes or goodbye letters to loved ones, self-harm, expressing helplessness and pain, like saying, "I don't know what to do anymore, I'm stuck here, nothing I do makes a difference, nobody cares about me, I don't belong here, what's the point, or I'm not wanted and cared about." Loss of energy, loss of interest in hygiene, loss of interest in personal life and activities. Of course, there's talking about suicide and death, that's a pretty big sign. Of course, there are so many more, which is why I encourage you to check out Beyond Blue's website. There are also some other wonderful YouTube videos that help open up the discussion around suicide and depression and suicidal thoughts. I'll leave the links to them below. In I Jumped Off the Golden Gate Bridge, Kevin talks about how he miraculously survived a suicide attempt, the things that led him to feel suicidal, and how he feels lucky to be alive every day now in his recovery. In her video Let's Talk Suicide, Katie Scarlett Speaks talks very powerfully about the impact of suicide on the remaining loved ones, how we need to talk about suicide and how you can understand suicidal thoughts when you've never felt that way yourself. She also talks about how powerful our words are in terms of other people's mental health and what we can do to take action. The documentary Suicide and Me follows the stories of several suicide survivors, what led to their suicidal thoughts, what happened on the day that they attempted suicide, and their life and recovery afterwards. It also follows the wonderful, amazing volunteers who man our suicide and crisis hotlines every single day, such as Lifeline or Crisis Text Line. It actually gives a really great insight on what to expect if you are to call a crisis support line or suicide hotline. And lastly, I Am a Suicide Survivor is a really moving and emotional recount of Mike Mader, who is a dad who lost his daughter to death by suicide. He shares the story of his daughter who took her own life at 16 and what it is to live through the death of a loved one. Please take a minute after this video to Google your local suicide prevention hotline and save that number to your phone. Save the information I've linked in the description box. Memorize it, because you never know when it might help you or someone you care about. Instead of leaving a comment or checking out our Twitter or checking out our Facebook this week, the only thing I want you to do is call your friends and loved ones and check in and ask them how they're really doing. Have an honest conversation with a community member, a neighbour, someone you might not have gotten to know too well before in the past, and see what's going on for them in their lives. Make a difference. Share the resources with your friends and family and anyone you can so that they can make a difference too. Again, before I go, if you're feeling suicidal or have suicidal ideation, please contact your local suicide and crisis hotline. I've left a link with numbers of the hotlines worldwide in the description bar. If you feel like your life is in immediate danger, please call your emergency services or present immediately to your local emergency room. Remember that you're amazing. You are so loved, even if you don't feel it right now. You are important. We care about you, and so do so many people in your lives.